Bondage and liberation are of the mind alone. God laughs on two occasions. He laughs when the physician says to the patient's mother, "Don't be afraid, mother, I shall certainly cure your boy." God laughs, saying to himself, "I am going to take his life, and this man says he will save it." The physician thinks he is the master, forgetting that God is the master. God laughs again when two brothers divide their land with a string, saying to each other, "This side is mine and that side is yours." He laughs and says to himself, "The whole universe belongs to me, but they say they own this portion or that portion." When the flower blooms, the bees come uninvited. There are three kinds of love: unselfish, mutual, and selfish. The unselfish love is of the highest kind. The lover only minds the welfare of the beloved and does not care for his own sufferings. In mutual love, the lover not only wants the happiness of his beloved, but has an eye towards his own happiness also. It is middling. The selfish love is the lowest. It only looks towards its own happiness, no matter whether the beloved suffers weal or woe. Have love for everyone, no one is other than you. The world is impermanent. One should constantly remember death. Once a person has faith, he has achieved everything. Make your meditation a continuous state of mind. A great worship is going on all the time, so nothing should be neglected or excluded from your constant meditative awareness. An ocean of bliss may rain down from the heavens, but if you hold up only a thimble, that is all you receive. The truth is that you cannot attain God if you have even a trace of desire. Subtle is the way of Dharma. If you are trying to thread a needle, you will not succeed if the thread has even a slight fiber sticking out. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies. Spirituality automatically leads to humility. When a flower develops into a fruit, the petals drop off on its own. When one becomes spiritual, the ego vanishes gradually on its own. A tree laden with fruits always bends low. Humility is a sign of greatness. The sun can give heat and light to the whole world, but he cannot do so when the clouds shut out his rays. Similarly, as long as egotism veils the heart, God cannot shine upon it. If you meditate on your ideal, you will acquire its nature. If you think of God day and night, you will acquire the nature of God. The winds of grace are always blowing, but you have to raise the sail. Only two kinds of people can attain self-knowledge: those who are not encumbered at all with learning, that is to say, whose minds are not overcrowded with thoughts borrowed from others, and those who, after studying all the scriptures and sciences, have come to realize that they know nothing. The ego is like the root of a banyan tree. You think you have removed it all, then one fine morning you see a sprout flourishing again. Sugar and sand may be mixed together, but the ant rejects the sand and goes off with the sugar grain, so pious men lift the good from the bad. You should love everyone because God dwells in all beings. That knowledge which purifies the mind and heart alone is true knowledge, all else is only a negation of knowledge. All religions are true. God can be reached by different religions. Many rivers flow by many ways, but they fall into the sea. They all are one. Man needs a guru. But a man must have faith in the guru's words. He succeeds in spiritual life by looking on his guru as God himself. A boat may stay in water, but water should not stay in boat. A spiritual aspirant may live in the world, but the world should not live within him. The supreme purpose and goal for human life is to cultivate love. Knowledge leads to unity, but ignorance to diversity. The breeze of grace is always blowing on you. You have to open the sails and your boat will move forward. So long as one does not become simple like a child, one does not get divine illumination. Forget all the worldly knowledge that thou hast acquired and become as a child, and then wilt thou get the divine wisdom. When the divine vision is attained, all appear equal, and there remains no distinction of good and bad or of high and low. As long as I live, so long do I learn. One must be very particular about telling the truth. Through truth one can realize God. Imagine a limitless expanse of water, above and below, before and behind, right and left, everywhere there is water. In that water is placed a jar filled with water. There is water inside the jar and water outside, but the jar is still there. The I is the jar. To work without attachment is to work without the expectation of reward. Do yourself what you wish others to do. Wisdom leads to unity, but ignorance to separation. So long as God seems to be outside and far away, there is ignorance. But when God is realized within, that is true knowledge. If you want to go east, don't go west. Sunlight is one and the same wherever it falls, but only a bright surface like that of water or of a mirror reflects it fully. So is the light divine. It falls equally and impartially on all hearts, but the pure and pious hearts of holy men receive and reflect that light well. The tree laden with fruits always bends low. If you wish to be great, be lowly and meek. The young bamboo can be easily bent, but the full-grown bamboo breaks when it is bent with force. It is easy to bend the young heart towards God, but the untrained heart of the old escapes the hold whenever it is so drawn. The waves belong to the water. Does the water belong to the waves? Men are like pillowcases. The color of one may be red, that of another blue, and that of the third black, but all contain the same cotton within. So it is with man, one is beautiful, another is ugly, a third holy, and a fourth wicked, but the divine being dwells in them all. If diving once does not bring you pearls, you need not therefore conclude that the sea is without them. By the mind one is bound, by the mind one is freed. He who asserts with strong conviction, "I am not bound, I am free," becomes free. What is the use of merely listening to lectures? The real thing is practice. Why does God allow evil in the world? To thicken the plot. If you spent 1/10 of the time you devoted to distractions like chasing women or making money to spiritual practice, you would be enlightened in a few years. One cannot be spiritual as long as one has shame, hatred, or fear. Forgiveness is the true nature of the ascetic. God is in all men, but all men are not in God. That is why we suffer. It is not lust alone that one should be afraid of in the life of the world. There is also anger. Anger arises when obstacles are placed in the way of desire. Great men have the nature of a child. It is the mind that makes one wise or ignorant, bound or emancipated. Men bound hand and foot in the endless chain of cause and effect cannot free each other. Too much study of the scriptures does more harm than good. The important thing is to know the essence of the scriptures. After that, what is the need of books? One should learn the essence and then dive deep in order to realize God. It is true that God is even in the tiger, but we must not go and face the animal. So it is true that God dwells even in the most wicked, but it is not meet that we should associate with the wicked. One should not think, my religion alone is the right path and other religions are false. God can be realized by means of all paths. It is enough to have sincere yearning for God. Infinite are the paths and infinite are the opinions. Who is whose guru? God alone is the guide and guru of the universe. Common men talk bagfuls of religion but do not practice even a grain of it. The wise man speaks a little, even though his whole life is religion expressed in action. Disease is the tax which the soul pays for the body, as the tenant pays house rent for the use of the house. You should not feel that your path is the only right path and that other paths are wrong. You mustn't bear malice toward others. When the fruit appears, the blossom drops off. Love of God is the fruit and rituals are the blossom. Little children play with dolls in the outer room just as they like, without any care of fear or restraint, but as soon as their mother comes in, they throw aside their dolls and run to her crying, "Mama, Mama." You too are now playing in this material world, infatuated with the dolls of wealth, honor, fame, etc. If, however, you once see your divine mother, you will not afterwards find pleasure in all these. Throwing them all aside, you will run to her. Pray to him any way you like, he can even hear the footfall of an ant. Different people call on God by different names, some as Allah, some as God, and others as Krishna, Shiva, and Brahman. It is like the water in a lake. Some drink it at one place and call it jal, others at another place and call it pani, and still others at a third place and call it water. The Hindus call it jal, the Christians water, and the Muslims pani. But it is one and the same thing. The fool who repeats again and again, I am bound, remains in bondage. He who repeats day and night, I am a sinner, becomes a sinner indeed. All will surely realize God. All will be liberated. It may be that some get their meal in the morning, some at noon, and some in the evening, but none will go without food. All, without any exception, will certainly know their real self. It is very pleasant to scratch an itching ringworm, but the sensation one gets afterwards is very painful and intolerable. In the same way, the pleasures of this world are very attractive in the beginning, but their consequences are terrible to contemplate and hard to endure. I have now come to a stage of realization in which I see that God is walking in every human form and manifesting himself alike through the sage and the sinner, the virtuous and the vicious. Therefore, when I meet different people, I say to myself, God in the form of the saint, God in the form of the sinner, God in the form of the righteous, God in the form of the unrighteous. You speak of doing good to the world. Is the world such a small thing? And who are you, pray, to do good to the world? First realize God, see him by means of spiritual discipline. If he imparts power, you can do good to others, otherwise not. Do not be small-minded. Do not pray for gourds and pumpkins from God, when you should be asking for pure love and pure knowledge to dawn within every heart. Live in the world like a waterfall. The water clings to the bird, but the bird shakes it off. Live in the world like a mudfish. The fish lives in the mud, but its skin is always bright and shiny. When you meditate, go into the solitude of a forest or a quiet corner and enter into the chamber of your heart. And always keep your power of discrimination awake. So long as the bee is outside the petals of the lily and has not tasted the sweetness of its honey, it hovers around the flower emitting the buzzing sound, but when it is inside the flower, it noiselessly drinks the nectar. So long as a man quarrels and disputes about doctrines and dogmas, he has not tasted the nectar of true faith. When he has tasted it, he becomes quiet and full of peace. A devotee who can call on God while living a householder's life is a hero indeed. God thinks, he is blessed indeed who prays to me in the midst of his worldly duties. He is trying to find me, overcoming a great obstacle, pushing away, as it were, a huge block of stone weighing a ton. Such a man is a real hero. The magnetic needle always points to the north, and hence it is that sailing vessel does not lose her direction. So long as the heart of man is directed towards God, he cannot be lost in the ocean of worldliness.